Boys and girls, I don't know. There was some disruption due to internet disconnection. Hope the screen is visible now for you people.
Visible, sir.
Okay.
Visible, sir.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So what I want to say here is method overloading is very simple concept. If you are using the same name for different methods, performing the similar activities, then that particular ability is called as method overloading. But do remember, method overloading requires you to specify different parameters as a differentiation between the different versions of the same method. Now, the difference means it may be the difference in the number of parameters or it may be the difference in the sequence of parameters. For example, int comma float and float comma int. There are two parameters, but these two are differing in their sequence. So they are treated as two different methods. Okay. So coming next, we are having a differentiation. I have kept a differentiation for what is public, what is private, and I have clearly shown it with regard to trying these things with that particular example which I asked you to go through circle class definition. Okay, is try to make those corrections and try to change the private to public and try to test that particular class whether it will be accessible or not and what type of error will it be showing to you. Okay, so in short, anything which is declared with a access control specifier as public is accessible to all the objects within the program, and something which is declared with a private as the access modifier will be accessible or visible only within that particular specific class, not outside of the class. So I mean that within one program, there may be 10, 15 classes existing, but if you make any variable or a particular method as public, that particular method or variable will be accessible to all the 10 or 15 classes that are created in the program. But if you declare that particular variable or the class as a private, that particular variable and or the method will be accessible only within the class in which it has been created. Okay. So next topic that we need to focus very highly is this keyword. This keyword is very, very useful concept and we need to learn about it. Okay. The simplest thing is, for example, I'm telling, you are seeing this keyword here, right? Just forget about this keyword. Think that it is not existing. If you see the line radius is radius, which value is being assigned to which value? For example, here the radius is a member variable of the class circle. At the same time, I am passing a radius value from the caller to this particular constructor. I am passing the radius value from the caller to this particular constructor, right? So here radius is the member variable and here the radius is the local variable. Now when I say radius equal to radius, is this radius equal to this radius or this radius value is getting assigned to this radius value? Usually we'll think that this radius value will be assigned to this particular radius value, right? But how is it happening? Just imagine that you have not written this keyword there. Even if you don't write this keyword, the program will work in the same logic as we were thinking. The value that is passed to the constructor will be assigned back to the member variable of the class. But why is it happening? It's because by default the compiler will introduce a pointer called as this pointer. Now I'm not telling it as a keyword, I'm telling it as a pointer. And this pointer will point to the current object, of the class. So if I have got object 1, while creating object 1 of circle, let us say circle 1, C1, I passed over there in the parenthesis 10. So this is pointing to C1. This is pointing to C1. The 10 will be stored inside radius. Now, here when this statement will get evaluated, on the left hand side, this keyword will be attached automatically, and this was pointing to the object C1, right? And object's variable is what? Radius. This member variable. Object's member variable radius will be utilized here, and here this radius will be kept into this particular radius. Though it looks a little confusing, but do remember this keyword is always used to point to the current object. So when I say it is used for pointing to current object, I means it points to the current member variables and member function, current objects, member variables and member functions. Okay. So I kept that particular definition over here. Please go through that particular concept. Here in the diagrammatic way also I am showing that particular same thing. This is going to point to this state and behavior. State over here is the characteristics, that means the member variables, and behavior means the member functions that are available in the object. But the same concept was there in C++ also. But here in Java, this keyword or this operator is going to perform 6 different usage activities. Those usages are, it can be used to refer to the current instance of the class. As we have seen in the earlier case, it is used for referring to the current instance of the class. Second one is, it can be used as a function call to invoke the current constructor of the class. This can also be used to invoke the current constructor of the class. Okay. This keyword or this pointer can also be used to invoke current class method implicitly. That means just like here we did not mention, suppose here if we don't mention this keyword, it was radius is equal to radius, and the compiler was implicitly by itself introducing this dot radius to remove the confusion for the compiler. Similarly, suppose if there is a function call and I have not mentioned which object's function it is, compiler will try to put this dot object, that means this method is of this particular class, it is going to point to that particular concept. This pointer can also be used as an argument to be passed to the method, and it can also be used to pass not just for some simple methods, it can also be passed for constructors also, and it is also used as a return value to the current instance. So for that explanatory, though here you may have got confused up, for each of it to illustrate in practicality how it is used, I have kept one program. So let us try to see. There are 2 methods in my memory now. There are 2 objects in my memory now, stack of memory. First one is going to contain ID is equal to 222, name is Aryan, and second one is containing 111 and name is Karan. Now how is this keyword used? Let us try to see. I'm defining one class, student11, with ID and name, and here I have got one constructor, ID and name. Do remember this ID and this name is the local variables of this particular method. So its span, its validity will be valid only within this particular block. That's why we are able to use it. Okay. Outside of this method, we have got one more ID and one more name. Now suppose imagine I don't write this, then this statement will become ID equal to ID, right? And there may be a confusion whether we are referring this ID or this ID, whether the right hand side is referring to this ID or this ID. It becomes a confusion point, right? To eliminate that confusion, Java compiler will introduce this keyword to the left hand side of the assignment operator, thereby telling that what is there on the left hand side of this equal to operator is the object's own ID, not the local method ID. Clear with this concept now? So now how do we use this as a function call to the current constructor? Let us try to see that particular part. Here in this particular program, you can see that I have two constructors here. One is trying to assign some values to the ID and name. The third one is going to take ID, name and city also and try to assign it. But I have already written some functionality for when the ID and name is to be assigned. How it is to be assigned, I have already written. So I need not write again ID is equal to ID, name is equal to name, and then city is equal to city. I'll just make a call to the previously existing constructor and call it. Okay. So how will I make a call to it? By using this statement. Okay. So as usual, we are making use of a main to make a call to the particular constructor and it gets evaluated out. So now, similarly, I kept program to represent this functionality. How will we pass a particular object, a current object, back to a method that has been demonstrated in this particular program? Do remember here we are passing an object of S2 class. So this S2 is currently being defined. So we need to refer to current object back to M function. So I'm passing this as the keyword here. Usage of this as a return type, it will return the current object back to its caller. So all these programs have tried to use all those concepts into a reality initiated program, which I have kept here. Please go through this particular program and try to understand it. Now, tomorrow onwards, we will start with method overloading and method overriding concept and try to see what are the differences between them. And this is the program meant for that particular difference. Okay. Then tomorrow we will see the string classes, and by the string, most probably we will end our fourth unit, string and interface. Tomorrow's class, don't miss it. Don't want to consume much time today because it's already 4:30 and beyond. So I don't think you people will be interested further to listen the class. So I'm going to wind up the class by this pointer itself. Fine. So third unit and till this pointer, I'm going to keep the notes. Please go through them carefully uh, till this particular program. You need to refer. So thank you everyone. If you have any doubt, please keep it in the chat box. I'll be waiting for it. Yes, Kumar will have some of the programs executed. I just wanted to have today itself how this execution happens. So we'll see it now. Let me first keep the third unit material. Okay. I hope the screen is visible to all.
No, sir.
Screen is not visible. Okay, 1 minute.
No, sir.
Is it visible now?
Visible, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
sir. Now it's visible.
Okay, good. Please have a look here. We have got two softwares that we need to install on our system. Actually, these two softwares are a part of one single Java programming only. So what are these two programs, softwares are? First one is Java Development Kit. This Java Runtime Development Kit is the second one. This Java Development Kit will contain those type of tools which are tools and libraries or predefined functionalities which are required for our program to be executed. And this JRE will give us those type of tools which are meant for compilation and execution of our programs. Okay. For different operating systems, there are different JRE concepts. There are different JRE softwares. JDK will be same for all of them. Okay. Using the tools that are available in JDK, you will be creating the programs. Using the tools present in the JRE, you will be compiling the programs and executing them as per the environment available. That's how Java became platform independent. So to install it, you need to first install your JDK. What you need to do is you need to just double click your JDK file. It it will ask for some permissions. Give it the permissions. It's a safe software. There is no virus inside it. So once you have permission for it, the installation process will start, but it has already detected that JDK is already installed. On my machine, it is already installed. Otherwise, what it will give you is, it will just give you a wizard, welcome wizard, where you will be clicking next and install, and it will get installed on your machine. Okay, it's plain and simple. There is no issue there. You just need to click on two next buttons and then install button. That's all. There is nothing big in it. Similarly, you need to go and install the JRE. Now, once you are done with these things, sometimes even JDK will be sufficient enough for your execution. Okay. If you are done with this installation, what you need to do is you need to go for your left hand prompt, my computer, and you need to right click that one. Go for properties of that particular my computer or this PC, something like that. You will get this system security screen, specification screen. Go for advanced settings. In the advanced settings, go for environmental variables. In this environmental variables, you will find two boxes. These two boxes are meant for those type of variables which are used by different softwares on your laptop or on your desktop. Without these variables, the softwares that you are going to install will not work without proper values. So one of these variables that you need to set, you can set in either of the boxes, but what is the advantage of setting in the below boxes? If you set in the upper box, that particular variable value will be valid only when you log in with that particular username on your system. For example, one of the usernames for my system is Asmatullah Khan. This is one of the users. Similarly, my brother will also be using this system. So I created one new account for him and I have given for him. So if I set any value here, that particular value will be set, that value will be valid only within my name, login ID environment. But I want for the whole system, right? That will be better for me. So I have to set the values here, not there. I have to set the value in the second box. So what are the two variables that we will be working on is one is the path, second is the class path. This path as the variable is different from path extension. Okay, path is the variable which we have to set. Okay, this variable will be already present on your system. What you need to do is you need to click on that variable, click on edit. Once you have clicked on edit, you have to go for new. It will take you to this particular position. And now concentrate well. I'm going back for the directory where I have installed my Java. So usually we'll be installing in the C drive, right? So inside C drive, there are various folders, and one of the folder is program files. Another one is basically this program files I have created for another program. Actually, we'll be having these two. One is the program space files, another is program space files x86. This is for 32-bit architecture and this is for 64-bit architecture. So we have usually installed Java for 64-bit architecture. Let us try to see where it is present. Here it is present. No, there is no Java folder present, right? So let us get back for 86 32-bit architecture. Is there any Java type of folder present? No. Okay, I did not install on this particular folder. Let me check it where I have installed it. I have installed not in C, I have installed it in D drive actually. What I did is in my computer, if you look back to the screen, I kept few of the drives specifically meant for some of the purposes. One is for system administration purpose, one is for just holding the softwares, one is for downloads of the file. So I have kept one exclusively for all the installations that will be done. So inside that, I've got various folders coming in between and various files which I have used. So let's get back to the installation folder, D drive. In this drive, there will be a folder called as D. Program files. Okay. Can you see Java? Then JDK 1.8. Here there will be a bin. You need to copy where exactly this bin is present. You need to copy this particular path. Paste it into the new list which you are trying to create here. This has already been done in this particular line. Can you see it? What you need to do is you need to just click here, paste it and click on OK. But right now I have already done it. You can see both the values are same. So I need not do it. I'm just clicking on cancel. Once you have done that particular addition, adding of values, or you have to create one new variable. You need to click on new and then give the name as class path. Do remember class path is one single word, and then what should be the value to be pasted here. Just like how we went for the bin folder, we'll go back for the Java and we'll go for JRE.